Hey guys, I just wanted to bring you a quick guide to fitting your saddle to your horse using shims, half pads. I know we always don't have the time to have a saddle fitter out right when you need them. So in the meantime, before having the saddle fitter out, you want to make sure your saddle is not too tight or too wide, too low in the back, too low in the front. So there's a lot of ways to correct that using shims. So I just wanted to give you a couple pointers, things to look for in your saddle fitting to better improve your horse's go and work. So before I get started, I wanted to let you know I'm not a professional saddle fitter, but I've been through enough saddle fittings to have a couple ideas. I also train horses and I'm considering the saddle fit all the time because that greatly affects how they move and how they respond to the work that we're asking them to do. So saddle fitting is huge. It's just like if you were to walk around wearing the wrong size shoe, you would not feel very good or perform very well. So make sure you're looking at your saddle on your horse's back to make sure the fit is proper. But still get your saddle fitter out. It is definitely a good thing to have them look at it, reflock, keep their eyes on it as your horse's top line changes as they develop. As I train horses and I teach riding lessons, I'm really aware of the horse's alignment and throughness, and I recently had surgery about a year ago on my horse who had kissing spine. So if you're interested, I have an article in the Flying Changes magazine in their May-June issue of this year. I wrote that article. It's all about my experience through kissing spine. And then also Chronicle of the Horse featured my mare Bristol in their kissing spine article of their March issue of this year. So check those out. Just always good to know what's going on with your horse's back. Anyway, so today I have my lovely assistant Apollo, and hopefully he'll be cooperative for today's little showcase. So first off, we want to talk half pads. I like to always have some sort of layer between the saddle and the pad. Here are a couple that I use. It's the Pro Light, and it has all these really nice cushy shims that you can place in there, thicker or thinner ones. So this has been a great addition to my tack room. I love having this for different horses that come into training. Seems to really provide that comfort level and the balance. Another one, if you're not looking to have necessarily some shims, but you just want some comfort or some protection for their back, this is the Thin Line little layer. So that's a great one to have on hand. And another one is this Matisse half pad. And that one has the shims available as well that go inside this Velcro area. You can shim the back or the front. I believe that's how you pronounce it, Matisse. We're just gonna go with that. Okay, so I like to have those three on hand. They really are helpful, and if you have a bunch of horses coming in, but yet you only have a select few saddles that you're working with, those are great to adjust minor adjustments with. I also have a bunch of these insert shims on hand at all times because they are a lifesaver in that last minute adjustment that you need. So get some of these. They're just like that, kind of that felt shim or something. So now talking saddle, when you are checking out your saddle's fit on your horse, you always want to first take the saddle and set it on their back with nothing underneath it, so you can see the saddle against their bare back. So I'm going to do that now and just talk a couple tips from the front to the back fitting. Okay, so today I will be showing you a custom saddle on Apollo, and I like to check, just kind of have a baseline of the horse's spine and what size tree I would want, the shape of the tree, and how it would fit his spine. So So I always like to have this little neat handy tool. This is super handy because you can mold it to their back and have an outline of the size you need. So I'm just going to show you how to check the size of the tree first. So basically, you place this over the center of the withers, and then you mold it to their back to get the idea of how the tree should fit your horse, like what size tree you're going for. So there you see it. There's the mold of his back. You can place this on a paper and trace it. That gives you a good idea of what size he would need: medium, wide, depending on your saddle maker. They're all a little different, but this will give you a good guide. You can set this up to a saddle and be like, it's a little too wide for him or narrow. So I'm going to set the saddle on top of his back, bare back. We're just going to get a good view of that. So here we go. So just set the saddle on the back, placing it right behind the point of the shoulder, so you can feel the scapula. You put your hand back there, you'll feel where the point is. I like to be right behind that, but snug up to it. That will give you less of that dipping zone where they get too far back and then they're dropping in the front. So make sure you're right up against that scapula point. You really have to run your hand down, and that's where the saddle should sit. So that way when you're girthing it, it's not going to slide forward and be jamming. It's already properly fit to that point. I like to run my hand down the front and just see how the contact fits right here. You don't want your saddle coming away from the horse in the front, creating pressure points where the saddle meets the shoulder. So what I like to do is just run my hand down, and there should be a nice even contact with that front panel against their shoulder. Now again, I'm not a saddle fitter, so terms and all that, don't quote me on it. But this is just a quick guide to knowing your saddle is to the best it can be until your saddle fitter can get to see them. So run your hand against the shoulder, make sure it's even there. What you do is come back to the center of the saddle and get a good eye if the center where you would be sitting is balanced in this bare back. So I see his saddle being slightly low in the back. So what I would do is I would use a pro light, and I would start shimming there, and maybe even have the thicker one handy. But that looks good to me. That looks more even. So when it's girthed down, it'll be more center in the balance. If you're riding and your saddle in the back is popping up, you see that big gap happening, that does not mean you need pads in the back. That typically means your saddle is too wide, causing it to fall down in the front and popping the back as they move. So when you feel that little extra bounce back here, it wouldn't hurt to test this theory out and grab some shims and take the front shoulder shim and stick it in the front section and just see if that does not balance your saddle out properly when they move, just creating a little more lift off the shoulder. You want to take your hand also and go down the front of the saddle and feel that you can feel proper spacing around his spine. You don't want to have, when it's girth and you have pads and everything in there, you do not want there to be any pressure points against the wither, the spine. Even when you're up in the saddle, you can kind of shove your hand through the front and you will see if there's any contact there. So make sure that they should have clear room in their shoulders and in their wither zone and all the way down into the center of their back. If you do not, if there is like contact there, place one of these pro lights underneath it, creating a lift off their back, and then shim it according to where it's out of balance. If it's low in the back, a little lift here. If it's popping in the back and you can tell it's kind of deep into their shoulder spacing, creating this pressure point, prop it up in the front. Now, there's so many areas of fitting a saddle. Say it's like tilty or a little twist in your tree. I play around with this. I kind of eye it take shims out, put them back, ride in it, take them out, listen to your horse. They will tell you. But there's a lot of the times I'll have 2 thin shims in, like, say the front left, and then over here I'll have 4 shims, because not every horse is symmetrical. You'll notice that in their shape. They'll have more of a concave side and more of a like a pushing out shoulder. So to fill up that gapping, I'll even take, like, if say this side is more deep and creating like this, it's not creating contact with your saddle, you can take 4 shims on this side, 2 shims on this front side, and I like to just kind of stack them like this. It's creating more of an even, instead of this big bulky shim, you create more evenness, and you can stick that right under that more concave side. Ultimately, your goal is to still, if your saddle is popping in the back, it seems low in the front, you're trying to lift the front, but now we're talking about side to side balance. So now that's where I come into maybe 4 and 2, or maybe even just one side is shimmed, and you can tell by how your saddle feels like it's tippy and kind of twisted. If you feel like there's a twist, like the back end's coming this way and the front end's going that way, you can put more of a shim on this side, creating that straight effect over their spine. So we definitely want to check that you have the right tree size. Get as close to perfect as possible on the tree size. That's very, very important. My horse, she is a very touchy mare, and not Apollo because he's a boy, but she feels all in a saddle fitting. Man, I'm just like, I'll put a saddle on, I'm like, definitely not. And then the next one, she's moving free. So she tells me everything. Not all horses do that, but you may be limiting their ability to perform and do what you're asking them to do. So it's very important to have the correct tree size and to have the right balance in the seat, and to then notice the tipping, the tilting, and the twisting of your tree. And you can use these shims to support it accordingly. So many options here. When you feel like you've gotten it pretty close, put your saddle pad on, then put your under layer on, whatever it is for comfort, whether it's the Pro Light or the Matisse or the Thin Line, and then from there shim it. And I'm telling you, that'll make a huge difference for your horse. And then even send a picture to your saddle fitter and say, hey, I need to make an appointment. This is what I've got going on. Does this look okay to you? But if you're just becoming more aware of it, that's a start. Your horse is going to appreciate that. Ride them in it, give them a good week. Right away, if you notice it's not working, play around, tweak the shims a little bit. But most importantly, you want to look for that balance. There's enough room in the paneling in the tree, and that it's sitting nicely without any pressure points in how the flap comes down on their side. But overall, easy tips to balance your saddle out. If you guys are interested in those articles on kissing spine that I referenced earlier, I will drop a link below in the description for you to be able to find that and read that if you're interested. But also go ahead and go to my channel, Rochelle Tracht, subscribe to find more videos like this, and make sure you like it and share it. I love making these videos for you guys, and also I would love it if you follow along on my Instagram account for more horse fun at Rich Tracht. So check me out. I hope those tips helped. Go home, check your saddle on your horse, make sure you're doing the best by your horse. Thanks, Apollo, for being a good assistant.